I grew up in a small town where the local church, St. Jude's, was considered the safest place imaginable. People called it a sanctuary in every sense of the word. It was a massive Gothic structure built from dark stone, its tall spires visible from almost anywhere in town. During the day, the stained glass windows glowed with warm colors and biblical scenes. At night, those same windows turned into jagged, black shapes that looked less like artwork and more like empty eyes watching the street. This happened last November, on a night colder than it had any right to be. I had been at my friend Leo's house playing video games, completely losing track of time. By the time I checked my phone, it was already 12:45 a.m., so I decided to walk home instead of calling for a ride. The streets were empty and so quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every sound feel louder than it should. As I was passing by the church, I saw a thin fog had rolled in from the river, drifting low across the ground and curling around headstones in the small cemetery beside St. Jude's. As I passed the iron fence, I noticed something that made me stop instantly. The massive double oak doors of the church were standing wide open, not cracked, not unlocked, just fully open. In our town, those doors were never open at night, ever. A tight knot formed in my chest. I told myself there had to be a logical explanation behind opening this door. Maybe a janitor had forgotten to lock up. Maybe someone inside needed help. Against my better judgment, curiosity won. I climbed the stone steps and crossed the threshold. The moment I stepped inside, the temperature dropped sharply, as if the warmth had been sucked out of the air. The smell hit me next. The smell of old wax, something burnt, and a faint metallic tang that made my stomach twist. I moved slowly down the side aisle, trying to stay quiet as my sneakers squeaked softly against the marble floor. That's when I heard it. A low, rhythmic whispering, not loud enough to understand, but steady and deliberate. It didn't echo like a prayer. It vibrated through the floor, through my bones. I ducked behind a heavy mahogany pew and pressed myself flat against the cold wood, barely breathing. Peering through the gaps, I saw our pastor standing near the altar. I had known him my entire life. He had baptized kids, married couples, buried the dead. But he wasn't wearing his usual robes. He wore dark garments embroidered with symbols I didn't recognize. Beside him stood another figure, completely draped in black cloth, face hidden behind a veil of thick mesh. Between them, resting on the altar, was a jagged obsidian blade that caught the pale moonlight and reflected it like black glass. They were chanting together in a language that sounded sharp and ancient, nothing like Latin or any prayer I had ever heard. My heart hammered so loudly and the rate of my nervousness was shaking the wood. I lay flat against, and I was sure they could hear it. I tried to back away slowly, but the cloaked figure suddenly straightened and slipped out through the side vestry. The pastor turned toward the pews. He didn't see me, but he sensed me. He walked to the entrance and slammed the massive doors shut with a strength that shook the building. I heard the iron bolt slide into place. "I know you're in here," he said. His voice was no longer calm or gentle. It was rough, low, and full of intent. He walked down the center aisle, scanning the shadows. He wasn't searching for someone to talk to. He was hunting for the person hiding, and the person is me. I crawled along the floor, my hands trembling, trying every side door of the church that I could use to go outside. All of them were locked from the outside. Unfortunately for me, he found me hiding inside a confession booth. The curtain was ripped back. He stood there with the obsidian blade raised, his face twisted into something unrecognizable. Just as he lunged the blade to cut me, the front doors exploded inward. Police flooded the church, shouting commands, their lights cutting through the darkness. Behind them was my mother, screaming my name. She had been tracking my location because I missed curfew and wasn't answering my phone. When my GPS stopped at the church, she didn't hesitate. She called the police immediately. If she had waited even one more minute, I wouldn't be here to tell this story. I would have been the final offering of that midnight ritual. So this is to tell you not trust anyone. My parents had traveled out of town for a weekend wedding in the city, leaving me behind with our nanny, Sarah. I was old enough that no one think twice about leaving me alone with our nanny can cause something dangerous. By Saturday afternoon, though, the house felt unnaturally quiet. Every sound echoed, the ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, even my own footsteps. The silence pressed in on me until I couldn't stand it anymore. Behind our house was a vast forest, and it was part of a state-protected woodland that ran for miles without interruption. I had walked its trails countless times and always found comfort there. So I told Sarah I was going for a short walk, no more than an hour, just to clear my head. She reminded me to take my phone and stay on the main path. I promised her I would. At first, everything felt normal. The air was cool, and the ground was soft beneath my boots. Birds moved through the trees, and sunlight filtered down in broken patches. I followed a dry creek bed deeper into the woods than usual, stepping over fallen branches and stones smoothed by years of water. I didn't realize how far I'd gone until the familiar trail disappeared entirely. I'm still wondering where I'm turning side to side to check the surroundings to know if I have gotten lost. That's when I saw it. Tucked into a shallow hollow was a structure that didn't belong. It was a small hut made of rotting cedar boards, its roof sagging under layers of moss and dead leaves. There were no windows and no markings. It looked old, abandoned, and wrong in a way I couldn't explain. I assumed it had been left behind decades ago. Maybe a forgotten tool shed from the logging days. I should have turned around right then. Instead, curiosity pulled me closer, thinking I might find someone in there to tell me the way out. When I pushed the door open, the smell hit me like a physical blow. Smell like raw meat mixed with harsh chemicals, sharp enough to sting my eyes. I gagged and staggered back, but the door creaked wider, revealing the interior. I know immediately it wasn't a shed after seeing the interior. Inside was something closer to a professional slaughterhouse. Stainless steel tables lined the walls, spotless and reflective. Bone saws, meat hooks, and butcher knives hung neatly from the rafters, all polished to a mirror shine. In the center of the concrete floor was a drain stained a deep, rusted brown. That was the moment I understood this place wasn't meant for animals but was for something else. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. A massive hand seized my collar and yanked me backward. The man holding me was enormous, wearing a blood-smeared leather apron and a heavy, featureless mask that hid his face completely. His grip crushed the air from my lungs. He dragged me toward one of the tables, reaching for a heavy bone saw with his free hand. Seeing what he was about to do to me, I panicked. I clawed at his arms, kicked him wildly, and slammed my elbow into his ribs. In the struggle, I knocked over a tray of metal tools. The clatter echoed through the hut, and for just a split second, his grip loosened. That was all I needed. I twisted free and ran. I burst out of the hut and sprinted into the trees, not caring where I was going. Branches whipped my face, roots tore at my boots. Behind me, I heard him running after me, his heavy thud of boots pounding the forest floor and the metallic clink of a blade swinging with each step. Every glance over my shoulder showed him closer. I was aiming for the road when my foot caught on a hidden root. I fell hard, pain exploding through my ankle with a sickening pop. I screamed and tried to crawl, dragging myself through dirt and leaves, but it was useless. He was on me in seconds. He grabbed my hair and wrenched my head back, exposing my throat. The cleaver gleamed as he raised it. Then a siren cut through the forest. Bright spotlights flashed between the trees as police officers rushed in, shouting commands. The man was tackled to the ground just as the blade brushed my skin. Through the chaos, I saw Sarah standing behind the officers, sobbing. She had called the police when I didn't come back and stopped answering my phone. She knew my favorite trails and led them straight to the area. I was carried out of the woods on a stretcher. I survived, but even now, long after my body healed, I still hear that bone saw in my dreams. Its low mechanical whine echoing in the dark, which keeps reminding me how close I came to never leaving those woods at all. It was a normal Tuesday night, the kind of night that feels forgettable even while you're living in it. I had gone to the local 24-hour supermarket to stock up on frozen dinners and snacks for a quiet movie marathon. The mall that housed the store was almost completely empty, the kind of emptiness you only find after midnight. Most of the lights in the corridor were dimmed, and the echo of my footsteps followed me as I walked inside. The supermarket itself felt strange in that late night. It was way too quiet, too clean, almost unreal. Only two other people were inside. A tired cashier near the customer service desk and someone restocking shelves near the back. The hum of the freezers and the distant buzz of fluorescent lights were the loudest sounds in the building. I grabbed what I needed and headed for the self-checkout, already thinking about getting home. I scanned my items one by one, watching the screen light up as each barcode beeped. I was reaching for my card to pay when everything changed in an instant. What I didn't know, or what I couldn't have known, was that a man had entered the mall 5 minutes earlier. He had bypassed security using an employee entrance and was now standing barely 10 feet behind me. Before I could even turn around, the front glass of the supermarket exploded inward. The sound was deafening, like a bomb going off inside the store. Shards of glass flew across the floor as a man stepped through the wreckage holding a shotgun. His eyes were wide and unfocused, empty in a way that sent immediate panic through my body. He didn't shout. He didn't demand money. He didn't say anything at all. He raised the shotgun and fired into the ceiling. The blast shook the building, sending chunks of plaster, sparks, and broken lights crashing down around us. Someone screamed, then another shot rang out. I dropped my bags and dove behind a display of stacked soda crates, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard and it hurt. I pressed myself flat against the floor, barely breathing. From where I was hiding, I could hear his footsteps moving across the linoleum. Slow, deliberate, and steady. Every few seconds, the shotgun roared again. Shelves shattered, glass exploded. The sound was overwhelming, echoing through the store and bouncing off the walls. I realized with a surge of cold fear that I was trapped in the front corner. The only path to the back exit required crossing a wide-open aisle, which is straight through his line of sight. When the shooting paused, I made a desperate decision. I ran. I sprinted toward the electronics section, my shoes slipping on broken glass and spilled drinks. I ducked behind a tall shelf stacked with box televisions, crouching low as my lungs burned for air. Somewhere behind me, the man began humming low, slow, and completely out of tune. The sound made my skin crawl. One by one, he shot out the overhead lights, plunging the store into darkness. Each blast left another section blacked out, the shadows growing deeper. I crawled on my hands and knees toward the loading dock, guided only by memory and dim emergency lighting. When I reached the back door, my hands shook as I grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't budge. A thick industrial padlock held it shut. I pulled again, harder this time, but it was useless. I was cornered, with nowhere else to go. I climbed into a large cardboard display bin filled with promotional packaging. I curled into myself and prayed he wouldn't look inside. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Then the footsteps stopped. They were right in front of me. Through small gaps in the cardboard, I saw his shadow stretch across the floor. The bin suddenly tipped over, and I spilled out onto the ground. Before I could scramble away, the shotgun was pointed directly at my chest. I looked up and saw a small, twisted smile spread across his face. "Time's up," he muttered, just as his finger tightened on the trigger. A blinding flash erupted from the front of the store. A deafening bang followed as a flashbang detonated, blowing out what remained of the mall's entrance. A SWAT team stormed in with terrifying speed and precision. Red laser dots appeared on the man's chest, arms, and head all at once. Shouts filled the air. Sirens wailed outside. The man didn't even get a chance to fire. They tackled him to the ground, disarming him in seconds. I collapsed where I stood, my body shaking uncontrollably as the reality of what almost happened washed over me. Later, I learned they had been tracking him after he triggered a silent alarm in the parking lot. If they had arrived even moments later, I wouldn't have survived. I was physically unharmed, but that night never really ended for me. Even now, I can't walk into a supermarket without scanning for exits, listening for footsteps, and watching every shadow. Because I know how fast an ordinary night can turn into something you barely escape alive.